Hello guys, today we're going to be unboxing and racking the MikroTik CRS326-24S+2Q+RM. Yes, I have to look at the label on the back of the box because there's no way in hell I am going to remember that model number. MikroTik's modeling scheme is fucking nuts, but it is what it is. So this switch is going to be my core fiber switch. This is basically going to be like an aggregation switch. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have remote switches in every single room. What I mean by that is there's going to be a switch in every room that's going to offer 8 1 gig Ethernet ports and 2 10 gig SFP plus fiber optic cages. And they're going to come back to this switch in the server rack. I'll be making fiber runs throughout the house. So there won't be no Ethernet runs going through the fucking floorboards or wall beams. It's going to be all OM3 fiber optic. So this is going to be my aggregation switch. So let's go ahead and unbox it. Now, I got this from, I'm going to overlay the site because I forget the name of the site, but it's some site over in Latvia. And I like their site because they have good pricing. They usually have all MikroTik's catalog, and they don't declare a value on customs, and their shipping's pretty fast. I mean, they probably send the packet. They probably send this to me faster than Amazon would, which is pretty crazy. But anyway, we're gonna go ahead and unbox it now. MikroTik's packaging, it is pretty basic cardboard box, but I'll tell you this: MikroTik has really good price, really good value. That's why I love MikroTik. You can get 10 gig switches for less than $1,000. And this wasn't a whole lot. I think this was like $300 to $400. And this will give me 24 10 gig SFP plus cages. And it gives me 2 QSFP plus cages, which is fucking nuts. Now, if we were talking Cisco, Juniper, or any other, enterprise gear that, that's giving you SFP plus cages, you're talking several thousands of dollars. You're probably talking 10, 15 grand. And I got this for like $400 or less. So I'm going to go ahead and open it. And it gives us your two, now this one, they actually sent me the wrong plug, okay? So this is a European style plug. But guess what? It doesn't matter because the power supplies in these, they're auto switching. They can support, 120 to 240 volts, 50 hertz or 60 hertz. So you don't have to worry. You just get yourself a different cable. So I ain't got to worry about that. I got the right American cable right here. Okay? North American cable, I should say. So these European plugs or whatever, these are useless to me in the United States. So these I don't need. I can just set them aside, toss them. It's kind of neat to see in a European plug. But look at that. Yeah, that's not going to work over here. But like I said, the switch will still work. You just get the right cable. You know what I'm saying? The power supplies in most electronics nowadays, when it comes to servers, switches, stuff like that, they're auto sensing. They'll accept a range of voltages and recycle. Okay, so you just got a really basic manual in here, so we'll set that aside. Really basic packaging. You have your rack ears, which I am going to rack this. We'll set that aside. You got a nice foam thing on top to protect the switch. You got your screws, and you got little rubber feet, and you got a MikroTik sticker, and then you got the fiber switch. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull the fiber switch out. I'm gonna go ahead and set the box aside, adjust the camera angle, and we're going to get on with looking at this beast. Okay, so we have the switch unboxed, like I said. Pretty simple unboxing. So what we have here is we have 24 10 gig SFP plus cages. Now this will accept DAC, which in this case, DAC means direct attached copper. It should support active cables, and it will support any SFP plus module, usually, fiber optic modules. So these right here are just, these are just fillers. So you pull these out, you have your cages. Makes sense? And these just keep the dust out of the cages. So you have 24 10 gigabit SFP Plus cages. So this is a 24 port 10 gig switch. That's pretty insane. That's kick-ass. So technically I could run each one of these to, if I run each one of these to a switch in a room, right? That'd be like 24 rooms. But also I'm going to plug servers and stuff into this as well. And a few workstations will have direct links as well. And then right here, this is the crazy part. Right here, we have two QSFP Plus 40 gigabit SFP cages. This is crazy. So we have two 40 gigabit links right there. So if I wanted to throw a ConnectX 3 Pro in my file server, which is going to be a Dell PowerEdge R730XD, I could communicate at it at 40 gigabit per second over the network. That's kick-ass. And here you have a console port. I believe you have to have a special RJ45 to USB adapter that can emulate serial. So this is like I believe this is like an RJ45 serial console. So you can use that to configure the switch. That's kind of old school. Everything's going to a web GUI nowadays, or even SSHing into the switch. And here you have your management port. This will allow you, if you want to separate it, have it on its separate VLAN or separate physical network, I'm going to have a management network, and this is going to plug into the management switch, and I'll be able to configure this switch via a web GUI or SSHN, etc. This is your management port. And of course, if you wanted to, you could have the management interface be available on any of these ports, but there is a dedicated management port. And this could also allow you to, give yourself a Ethernet handoff if you wanted to have that as well. Here you have a USB port. I believe that's mainly for updating the firmware. I believe that's what that's for. So you have some LED lights. Not sure what user means, but you have user, fault, pretty self-explanatory, And you have power 2 and power 1. So this has two power supplies in the back. So it has redundant power supplies, which is pretty cool. So, and right here you see cloud router switch, the model CRS326-24S+2Q+RM, and it's MikroTik. Pretty cool. So these are just fillers. So if I take some of these out so you can actually see what it looks like. And I do recommend you keep the fillers in just to keep dust out. I mean, it's not going to really hurt it. But I've seen, especially in enterprise environments, none of their switches have fillers in them, and you have literally dust just coming out of the freaking ports, literally banana ears type of deal. It's pretty nasty. Okay, so in close you guys couldn't see very well. I will give you guys a close-up view here. So like I said, you got some LEDs here. You got user, fault, power 2, power 1. So of course, if one of them power lights is out, that just means one of your power supplies either lost power or has failed. Okay, so it does have redundant power supplies. I'm not sure if they're hot swappable. We'll have to look at that, but I'm pretty sure, if one does fail, you could take the unit apart and put a replacement in if need be, right? I would like to open this unit up, crack the hood on it, and I think we should do that. I mean, I bought this, I believe I bought this in 2020. It's been sitting down here because I haven't had a server rack and stuff to put it in yet, but I do have a 24U server rack now that has been installed in the basement here, and I actually have dedicated electric runs ran to it now. So now I can start, gearing up and putting gear in it, you know what I'm saying? So the reason why this has been sitting down here is because, well, one, I didn't have a rack to put it in, and two, I didn't have all the networking gear, because in order to communicate to this, I have to have some other networking stuff. I have to have my PoE switch, I have to have my main core router. So I was just going to wait till I have all the networking gear before I'd put it into service, if that makes sense. So it's basically just been sitting in the box in the basement for 2 years. So I'm not sure what the warranty is on it. Probably 1 year, 2 years. Probably out of warranty now, but not a big deal. I mean, this isn't really something that you're going to see failing anytime soon or very often. So here are the SFP plus cages. SFP plus means can do 10 gigabit per second, whereas SFP without the plus is 1 gigabit per second. I do believe these ports are 1.25 gig capable. Let me look at the manual here. So this is what it says: 24 10 gig SFP plus ports, 2 40 gig QSFP plus ports, 1 RJ45 console port set to 11 5200 bits per second, 8 data bits, 1 stop bit, no parity. So like I said, that's like a serial console port. 1 10 by 100 meg Ethernet port for management access. So the management interface is only a 100 meg port, but who cares, because it's just for a web GUI. And you wouldn't really want to use that as an Ethernet handoff because it's only 100 meg. If it was gigabit, yeah, maybe, but you have a USB type A port, 3 cooling fans with automatic speed control. And if this does get loud, I think somebody had a mod where they put little Noctua fans in it, but I don't imagine it being that loud. We'll have to see. I won't be powering it on in this video. I'll just be, unboxing it, maybe cracking the hood on it and racking it. I'm not going to really power it on or configure any of it until I have all my networking gear. I should be having my router be coming here, hopefully pretty soon. But 3 integrated power supply units with AC inputs for redundancy. And it tells you the compatibility with SFP modules. MikroTiks are pretty much not picky with their the modules you can throw at them. Whereas some enterprise switches, if you don't have their branded SFP module, like a Cisco switch, if you don't have a Cisco module on it, it won't play very nicely. But a lot of vendors such as FS, Fiber Store, they can code their SFP modules to talk Cisco or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So they can make them compatible. But MikroTik, it doesn't matter. So I can actually throw native Cisco modules in this and it should just work, which is pretty cool. So you also got a reset button on the front here. Right there. I don't really like where it's placed. I wish they would have put it off to the side, because say you're plugging in like a management port, you can accidentally hit it or something. But you should be able to back up the config and restore the config. So after you configure this, I'm just going to be running SwitchOS on this, SwOS. I'm just going to use it as a basic layer 2 switch. So I'm not going to really be doing anything too fancy with VLANs or, doing anything like that. But yeah. It does support SwitchOS software version 2.9 and above and RouterOS version 6. So you could use RouterOS if you wanted, but there's no need to. Okay, so another thing, when you're configuring this, you'll connect the Ethernet port to management interface here, just to like a laptop. And what you'll do, this doesn't have DHCP or anything on it by default. I don't think if you plug it in, I don't think it will give you a DHCP address. What you need to do is you'll need to bind, just have like a little laptop that you use to, configure shit with. So just pull out a little laptop, plug it in via Ethernet, bind the laptop to 192.168.88.2, and then in your web browser, you'll go to 192.168.88.1. So you'll be able to communicate to this this switch's web interface and configure it. And I can set the management interface to pull from DHCP. So when I hook this up to the management switch or whatever, pull down an IP address and I can talk to it and configure it. But yeah, that's one thing about MikroTiks in order to set them up if you're not going to use like serial console or whatever, because, that's kind of much harder and it's kind of antiquated. Nobody really does that anymore. You'll just connect the laptop, statically bind to an IP address within that subnet and connect to it, and then you can configure it. That's how I did my other MikroTik switches. But I'm just looking on here. There's also a MikroTik Winbox utility that can allow you to configure them. But I don't manage with that. And the default credentials for the web GUI is the username admin and then no password at all. Just leave it blank. That's the default credentials. I actually forgot the credentials on one of my other MikroTik switches, and I thought I put it in my KeyPass, and I didn't. So I have to end up resetting that switch. So yeah, shit happens. But anyway, I digress. So I'm going to show you some SFP modules. I'm actually going to get some FS ones, some 10 gig SR, that stands for short range. I just call them 10 gig seniors. Because really in a home environment, or really even in most, schools and shit like that, if it's within the building, the same building, you're not going across multiple buildings or whatever, you should be able to get away with 10 gig SR SFP modules, assuming you're using fiber. Now, if you're within rack, you're going to use DAC cables, because DAC cables will offer slightly lower latency, if that makes sense. But everything else, longer runs, excess, anything I'd say 15 foot and beyond, you're probably going to want to stay with fiber. But 15 foot and below, you'll want to use DAC, if that makes sense. So, yeah, like I said, they're your two QSFP plus cages. These will do 40 gigabit per second, which is pretty fucking nuts. I think that's insane. Okay, so I just have a bag of SFP modules right here. And these are actually all Cisco SFP modules that I got at one of my previous jobs. But I do plan on buying FS modules. And like I said, you'll get SFP-10G-SR. That just stands for 10 gigabit short range. I'll overlay the distance. But like I said, let me tell you one thing. SFP goes a lot farther than Ethernet ever will. It's just so superior to Ethernet. And by Ethernet, I mean using, RJ45 twisted pair, Cat 5, Cat 6, Cat 7 cables. Because the Ethernet is a protocol in essence. And we are talking Ethernet, TCP/IP on SFP here. I mean, we're still using Ethernet, but it's a different form factor. Just like when you connect to Wi-Fi, you're still using Ethernet, but you're using a different medium, if that makes sense. So I'm not to confuse you, Ethernet's a protocol, and you have different mediums. When people think of Ethernet, they think of, the RJ45, cat cables, right? But SFP is another medium, and SFP is so superior. Whenever I say Ethernet, I'm talking about, the RJ45 twisted pair cables, okay? SFP is so much superior to it. In data centers, you're not going to see Ethernet being used. Rarely. It's all going to be SFP plus. In QSFP, it's all going to be SFP. And there's other protocols, fiber channel, stuff like that. That's mainly for SAN network, stuff like that. But they're not using Ethernet cables. And not just to diverge onto a different topic, but 99% of Ethernet cables you buy don't even match their spec. They're fucking a scam and they're garbage. But that's another topic for another video later on. But SFP is so much superior. If you're going to do a proper home data lab, or even, do a bit, a step for a business, go SFP. Just go SFP. Only problem is it's not native on your computers. You have to throw in an SFP Plus card, but, minor details. So these are SFP modules. These are what SFP modules look like. This is actually a fiber optic module. And you'll have different terminations. I don't know how well that's focused, but this right here is an SFP module, okay? And this is a Cisco module. I don't know if that's in focus. It looks like it's in focus now. So this is a Cisco module. And like I said, MikroTik isn't really picky about the SFP modules you throw at it. It will take pretty much anything you throw at it, which is pretty fucking kick-ass. And there's some SFP cards that can take pretty much anything you throw at, like Mellanox and Chelseo. Intel, on the other hand, is fucking picky, and you have to do something with the firmware to make it accept non-Intel modules, which is stupid. But I divest. So this is a Cisco module. I got like a whole bag of these from work. Like they had just thousands of these from old switches, because a lot of businesses and enterprise, they're moving away from 10 gig. They're moving on to 40 gig and stuff, but actually 40 gig is becoming replaced with the new 25 gig and 100 gig SFP modules, which I think that's kind of a downgrade, because you're starting out 25 now instead of 40 gig, which is stupid, but whatever. But that's the way the market's going, so they're getting rid of their old gear. So you can get a lot of 10 gig SFP modules on the cheap. And I got a shit ton of these modules, which is cool. The only problem is these came from a used customer, right? This was, I believe it was like a hospital, or I don't know. I'm not supposed to speak on the details of the customer, but since these are used, I will probably want to clean them. But like I said, I actually plan on just getting FS modules, but I could plug these in and use them. So these are 10 gig SR, which is exactly what I need and want. So how this works is it will only go in one way. So if you put it in the wrong way, it will not go in. But I actually got it right. It literally just slots in like that. You just slide it in and it clicks into place. Now if you put it in the wrong way, like say I try to put it in like that, it will not go all the way. And do not try to push in on it, because what you'll end up doing is you'll end up busting the SFP connector on your switch, which is what a fucking idiot does. So you just turn it around like that, and it clicks in. That is what SFP looks like. And then what you do, depending on what type of connector this is, what type of termination it is, I believe this is an LC type connector right here, LC UPC. You have two lasers in here. One is a photosensor for receive, and one is either a laser or an LED for transmit. So you have receive and transmit in here. And actually, when this switch is powered on and plugged in, one of these is going to light up. Now, if you're using cheaper modules, it'll be an LED, okay? But if you're getting into more quality modules such as Cisco or long-range modules, 10 gig-LR, which can do miles and miles. Yes, miles. Fucking, Ethernet maxes out at what, like 300 foot, 400 foot. This can do several miles. The short range, I think, can do, I'd have to look it up, but I believe it's like 1 or 2 miles, something like that. But the long range can do I believe it's like 40 miles. It's fucking insane. And you're like, why do you need that? Well, that would be like, say you have like a campus, you can run fiber in between buildings, and you just run conduit, get like a ditch witch, dig a trench, between your different buildings for your campus, lay conduit, shoot a fiber optic cable through it, and then this basically you have a fiber optic switch in each, you have an SFP switch in each building, and you're able to connect your entire network that way. That's why you can go to any building on a campus and be on the same LAN network, because SFP, they're connecting their buildings together. There's other ways, such as, wireless bridges, stuff like that, point to point. But proper way most companies and schools and universities and shit do it is, SFP. But yeah, you have two fiber modules in here. Well, two, you have a photosensor for receive, and you have a laser or LED for transmit. Like I said, you plug this in, this will light up. You'll actually see red. And you're not actually supposed to look directly at these. But like I said, my FS ones, they're not as bright, they're not as powerful. I think they're like using an LED instead of a laser. But if this was a laser, you could damage your vision. So I do not recommend doing that. But there's a way to see if the module's working or whatever. Well, not working, but at least getting power, And then to get these out, these have a little handle that just pops out, and you have to take the fiber optic cable out first. So, like I said, you'll just plug a fiber optic cable into this. You'll have to know what termination type, and you can get fiber optic cables from fs.com as well. That's where I'm going to get most of mine. I already have plenty of fiber optic cables laying around here, but yeah, the fiber optic will just plug into there. These modules, they just come out like that. But that is SFP plus. These are SFP plus. Now, in order to use these modules will not work in this. They will with like a breakout cable, but with this, you'll have to use QSFP. And this one is not wanting to. So that's the problem with some of these used ones, is sometimes the latch is kind of stuck or stiff. There we go. But there we go. SFP modules. I got loads of them. I'll be buying FS ones. So anyway, let's get on with it. I think we should crack the hood on this. I'm going to put these fillers back in. But what do you guys think? Do you think we should crack the hood, take a peek inside? I mean, you might as well. I mean, I'm not going to really do much except take a peek, right? Remember, this is running 24 10 gig ports and 2 40 gig ports. I mean, that's this ain't your basic fucking Netgear, you know, Ethernet switch from fucking Walmart or Best Buy. This is something you see more in a business or enterprise environment, and also, you know, my basement. But yeah, this switch right here is it's a steal for the price tag. I mean, $400 seems like a hell of a lot to most people, but when you think about what you're getting, and this is like more geared toward businesses and enterprises, you could see why people are these are just selling off the fucking shelves. Well, these aren't actually on shelves, but you know what I mean. I mean, these are selling like hotcakes. I mean, the value ratio is just insane. I mean, now MikroTik is doing 100 gig switches for under $1,000. What the fuck, right? I mean, it's crazy. And you know, I've been thinking, hey, well, shit, maybe I should go 100 gig now. Well, I already have this switch. I hate to just set aside and not use it, you know? I mean, it's been sitting in my basement for 2 years. I already had the network already, you know, planned out what gear and stuff I'm going to use. I mean, but every time you turn around, MikroTik's offering something better for a kick-ass price. I mean, they're basically giving the middle finger to Cisco and Juniper and, you know, all them enterprise brands, but it's crazy. But yeah, I can sit here and talk for hours about this stuff. I mean, I find it fascinating. But yeah, now they're offering 25 gig switches and 100 gig switches. And the 25 gig, I believe, has like 16 or 24 ports, and it was under $1,000. I can't remember the price off of hand, but it was crazy. It's like, shit, maybe I should go 25 gig, or, you know, maybe I should go 100 gig. I mean, shit, let's go all the way, right? But yeah, when I get this all racked, just imagine when the ISP comes out to install fiber, whenever the hell we get that. I mean, they're going to be fucking crazy, right? They're going to be like, holy shit. I mean, you're running a fucking fiber to every fucking room. That's pretty crazy, right? Well, you know, we do things differently on this channel. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and adjust the camera angle, and I think we're going to go ahead and crack the hood on this and see what's under the tank here. Okay, so the top of this unit is just white, and it has MikroTik, and it says Cloud Switch Series. And you probably can't really see that too well on camera, but it's just like indented. But I will say the metal, I mean, the build quality is acceptable, okay? It's not the thickest metal I've touched, but like I said, there is that price to performance ratio. I mean, they're not worrying too much about the chassis and the packaging. They're worrying more about offering you, you know, the good stuff up front and giving you a good price tag on that to beat Cisco and Juniper and all those other brands. But the metal, it's acceptable, but you can tell it's more prosumer, okay? So to crack the top on this, it looks like there's just two little Phillips screws on the sides here, which I'm not going to adjust the camera and show you. You just have to believe me. Two little screws on the side. Maybe there's, oh yeah, there's quite a few in the back. You got 1, 2, 3, 4. You got 4 in the back. So they really want that to not come off on the back. But I'm going to go ahead and get my my pick quick out, and I'm going to go ahead and crack the hood on this bad boy. I might already have the right bit that I need on the screwdriver. So the right bit that I needed was a P1, Phillips one. And these are very tiny screws, so you don't want to lose them. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, guys. Oh, yeah. We're having some fun today, aren't we? So you see we have, I'll try to get out of the light. You see we have 3 fans right here, and it's good that they actually are connectorized, so you can just, unplug them, and you can easily unscrew them from the back. Just take two little screws and put different fans in there. Or you can disconnect them, although they probably report their RPMs back to the OS, and if it detects that one's missing, it might throw an error or fault. It might light up that red light in the front, you know what I'm saying? You never know. So you got a nice little heat sink here. This is going to be our system on a chip, which I believe is Marvell based. And if I have the specific SoC, I'll overlay it. But I believe most of the SoCs that MikroTik use is Marvell based, which is, it's pretty accepting of any module you throw at it. You got a lot of you actually have another fan header on this board. So you actually have a 4th fan header. So you got a fan 1, 2, 3, and a 4. And the 4th fan header, well, actually all these fan headers have 4 pins, but the fans only use 3. I don't know if these are PWM or if they're DC. I'm trying to see if I can make out the fan make and model. All I see is it ends with an LY. I mean, they're not going to be. I don't think they're going to be putting Delta fans in this or anything crazy like that. But just tiny little fans, and I'm not sure what size fans these are, but they're tiny. Got your SFP cages right there. You got your 2 QSFP plus cages. You got your 2 power supply units over there, and these are just little switch mode power supplies, I believe, SMPS. You just unscrew them. They are connectorized, so you can just pop the connector off, get another one of these units. I'm not sure where you get one from. I'm sure MikroTik would be able to send you one. But it is good that these are, they didn't just solder them to the board. So if you had to replace one of these, you could. I mean, it's not the most straightforward compared to just, hot swap power supply. You just, unplug from the board, you just swap out in the back. It's a bit more involved, but you do have your 2, power supply units there. But yeah, that's just a close-up of the inside of this unit, Not much to it. I mean, pretty cool. Now, I do believe Serve the Home or Lawrence Tech or one of those channels have probably already cracked the hood on this switch. Because, they like to review switches like this as well. But there wasn't really much to it. It's dated 2019. Actually, May 25th of 2019 is when this was manufactured, according to the stamp on the cover. But yeah, that's just the inside of it, I figured, while we have it out of the rack, you might as well take a little crack inside of it, right? Why not? So I'm going to go ahead and put the hood back on it. Not the tank, the hood. And we'll go ahead and we'll take a look at the sides and the back of the unit, and then we're going to go ahead and install the rack ears, and then we're going to go ahead and install this into the rack, okay? Because I can sit here and talk for hours, but let's just get straight on with it. Okay, So I got the hood back on her. We're going to go ahead and look at the sides and the back and then install the rack ears. So just for completeness, I'll show you the sides. So switch it over to this side. You just have ventilations. You have your 4 screw holes right here for your rack ears. So, and there is that screw I was talking about on the side to take the hood off. And this table's uneven, so just, don't mind it, please. So on the back here, you got your 2 power supplies. And like I said, it doesn't matter if they send you the wrong cable. These are pretty basic cables to come by. 100 to 240 volts, 2.2 amps, max 50 to 60 hertz. So these are auto sensing. They'll take whatever you throw at them. So you ain't got to worry about that. Okay. Then you got your 3 fans there. Depending on loudness, I might swap them out for Noctua fans because I have seen that done on these switches. Or I've seen people put Noctuas and MikroTiks. So that might be a future video if they're noisy. So that might be something in the future. You just have 2 screws for each one of those fans just to hold them in. Oh, and here's your 4 screws to take the hood off. On the other side, this side, strangely, doesn't have the ventilation. Just the other side. So go ahead and install the rack ears. So these take very tiny screws. I have noticed some in the baggie, they do not give us cage nuts or cage screws. So you'll have to use the ones that came with your server rack cabinet. This uses the same Phillips 1 screws as I believe the hood. So you use a Phillips 1 on these. And this switch is really lightweight, so you really don't gotta really worry too much about it, I'm using my good old trusty MikroTik. Don't need no LTT screwdriver for this, I do have an LTT screwdriver coming, and that's going to be a future video. I paid like $80 for it, after shipping tax. So we'll compare it to my good old trusty MikroTiks. But I'm going to tell you right now, I think it's a bit overrated. I think the MikroTik's probably going to be a superior product. There we go. The rack ears have been installed. I'll go ahead and get you guys back on the regular camera angle so you guys can see what it looks like with the rack ears installed. And guys, that's what it looks like when you have the rack ears installed. So this switch is ready to be put into the server rack. So I'm going to have to look in my trip light box and find 4 cage nuts and 4 cage screws. And like I said, this is very lightweight, so you don't have to worry too much about it. I mean, it's a very slim switch as well. It's very lightweight and slim, which I like about it. We might power on just to see how loud it is, but, like I said, I can't really do too much with it right now. There will be a video in the future once I have all the networking gear of, setting it up and configuring it. And, yeah, we'll go ahead and get this bad boy racked. Okay, guys, so we have the rack ears on, and what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and rack this MikroTik switch into the server cabinet. This is a 24U server cabinet from Triplight. Now, MikroTik didn't include any cage nuts or screws. However, my server cabinet gave me plenty of them. Now, you don't have to worry about the how strong the cage nuts are. I know there's different ratings. I believe like M5 and M6. You don't have to worry. This is a very lightweight switch. This thing weighs like next to nothing. So it does not matter. Okay, now if we were going to mount like a big, heavy 2U server full of, like 28 or 32 hard drives, or a big 4U UPS or something like that, then yeah, I would pay close attention to what cage nuts and screws that I'm putting in there and make sure they're up to spec. But most networking gear is pretty lightweight, and this is even more lightweight than Cisco or Juniper switches. I mean, this thing weighs next to nothing, so it does not matter. Now, before we willy-nilly just put this switch anywhere we want in the server cabinet, you have to plan out what stuff you're going to put in your server cabinet and where everything is going to go. You generally want all your heavier stuff on the bottom, okay? You don't want your cabinet being top heavy. And when you go to put heavy stuff in your cabinet, it has to be bolted down. Now, this server cabinet has not been bolted to this cement foundation yet, but I plan on having that done later. I'm probably going to have the right bolts and the right kind of like impact driver. I'm not sure how I'm going to get bolted to the ground. That's something I'm going to have my brother figure out, or have to pay somebody to do. But before I start putting like heavy servers and big UPS units in it, I'm going to have it bolted down. But you want to have all your heavier stuff on the bottom. So obviously my big 4U 240 volts UPS is going to be on the bottom. My file server is going to be on the bottom. All your networking stuff is generally going to be towards the top of the rack. So I mapped out everything, where everything's going to go in this server rack and what I plan on putting in it. So this is my 10 gig switch. This is my core 10 gig switch that's going to act as an aggregation switch. So this is going to go in rack unit 5. So number 5 is 10 gig switch, which is what this is. So this has units. Okay, so I said this is a 24U. That means it has 24 slots you can use. And this is a 1U switch, so it only takes up one of those units. If it was a 2U switch, pretty rare. Most networking gear is not 2U. Most networking gear is usually 1U. But if it was a 2U switch, you'd have to allocate 2 slots for that. Does that make sense? So you want to put this in the right slot, because when you put more stuff in there later, you want it to be already where you want it to be. You don't want to have to take it out and move it, and it's just a nightmare. So map everything out before you put stuff in there. So I mapped everything out, what all gear I'm going to have and where it's going to be placed in the cabinet. So the 10 gig switch is going to be in slot 5. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust the camera angle, get you guys over here. Hopefully there's enough lighting. If not, I got a big work light that I can turn on. Okay guys, I hope you can see this all right. This is the server cabinet. So right now, if I go ahead and open it, the only thing that's in it right now is a 1U shelf that I have in slot number 23, so the second one down. So I have a 2U space for miscellaneous stuff such as your modem, okay? So right now, what's in there is my DSL modem, the 2-wire 2701HGS, and I have my current pfSense router, which is a Netgate 3100, and then I have an 8-port Netgear gigabit switch. That's the current networking stuff right now. It's in there. Like I said, I don't have all the networking gear that I need yet, so that's where it's going for right now. But anyway, I'll see if I can get you guys I don't know how well you guys can see that on camera. You can barely see it. So you got a shelf right here, okay? So if I change the view and maybe get a light pointed in here, you guys can see it maybe a hair better, but we're going to go ahead and rack this unit in slot number 5, which, the funny thing? The funny thing is this server cabinet goes reverse. And when I was making my Excel sheet for this, I started with number 1 at the top. Well, number 1 is at the bottom. Okay, guys? Does that make sense? So I should probably update that later so I avoid confusion. But it will be basically 5 slots down is where it's going to actually go, if that makes sense. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's going to go in slot 20. So that's where it's actually going to have to end up going. But yeah, I didn't think about that. Derp. That was a brain fart on my in there. So there's the shelving unit, and like I said, it kind of blocks the view a little bit. You have to look up at an angle, but the modem's in there and the current Netgear router's in there. Like I said, that is second rack unit down. You put in the one rack unit up, it'd actually be kind of hard to get in it because it has that front cover. Makes sense? So you kind of have to allocate it for 2U allotment, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to put stuff on the shelf unless you put it in from the back. Which actually, I think the back's it's got a cover too. But yeah. Anyway, we're gonna go ahead and put this switch where it goes. Now, the first thing you want to do is you want to put in your cage nuts. Now, people bitch about cage nuts, but it just depends on what brand cage nuts you get. I find the ones with trip light are pretty damn easy to install. Okay, so I went and updated the paper, and now I actually got the right stuff. I hope the lighting is okay, so you guys can see okay. I really need to get an external monitor, but yeah, it is what it is, you know? So the 10 gig switch is indeed in rack unit 20, now that I have it in the proper descending order there. Okay. So what you'll need to do is you'll need to have your cage nuts and cage screws, which I do have from Trip Light. The only bad thing is they're not white, so they don't match the switch. I wish MikroTik would have included cage nuts and cage screws, but they didn't. I guess when you're not paying 10 grand or 15 grand, you don't get that. So, oh well. I mean, I can always paint them white or get white screws later, but I really don't care. I still think it'll look okay. You know, black on white should be okay. So yeah, the first thing you gotta do is install the cage nuts. Now, the way these go on is they just pinch on into these square slots here. So we're at 20, and each unit has 3 holes on this cabinet. So it's going to be the top and the bottom hole, not the center. Some stuff mounts with the center, but this one doesn't. So we're going to place 4 cage nuts for rack unit 20 there, and yeah, it's going to be and these go left to right, not up and down. When you put the clips on, it has to go left to right. Then you just place the switch in there, and then you just screw it on. It's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, it's not really rocket science, but I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I got 4 cage nuts. Don't know how well you guys are going to see that on camera. I'm quite a distance from a microphone. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. I just got to speak loud. So for slot number 20, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pinch that in like that. So there's 1. People say cage nuts are a pain in the ass, but literally these Trip Light ones are pretty fucking easy to install. I mean, I heard Ubiquiti has the worst cage nuts, but these have been a breeze to install. One thing I will note is the Trip Light cage nuts do seem a little bit on the cheap side. I mean, the clips do. I mean, a nut's a nut, but the clips. I've had one of the clips break off. And maybe just them being that easy to put in makes them a little bit cheaper. But, you know, once you screw the screw in, it's going to be pretty solid from then on there out, if that makes sense. So now what we do is we're going to place the switch here in 20, right? And then we're going to screw it in. There's also a washer you put in front before you just screw it in. That way you don't like scrape up your switch, and also I guess it makes better contact, more secure. So I got 4 screws and 4 washers. I'm gonna go ahead and set them up the top. Place the switch in there. This is where it is nice to have a buddy system, you know, have somebody here to help you put it in, but it's just me, so it'll have to do. And I'm just going to get these hands started. Maybe I'm going to get them started. Yeah, it would be nice if I had somebody helping me hold it. It'd be really nice. There's that one. I'm just hand tightening them just to hold the switch in place. Just to hold it in place until I can screw it in. Yeah, if this was a heavier switch or like a server, you definitely need 2 people minimal. To be honest, it doesn't even look that bad. There we go. Now I'm going to go ahead and get my Pick Quick screwdriver and tighten it. I'm using the Phillips 2. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Not too tight, just snug enough to where it's going to hold it. I don't want to like crack the washers because they are plastic washers from what it appears to be. Oh yeah. I don't think this switch is going to go anywhere. There we go, guys. Look at that. The switch has been racked. I don't know how well you guys can see that on camera, but we have it in rack 20. It was a little challenging, you know, because you have to have one hand holding it up and the other hand to get the screw started. Since these are so lightweight, you can thumb start them. So I thumb started all 4 screws and I got out my trusty Pick Quick and tightened it. Now you just want to tighten them snug enough to, you don't want to be breaking the washers because these washers from Triplite, they are plastic from what they appear to be, and you don't want to crack them because then that makes the washer effectively useless. But that's definitely in there. Like I said, this isn't going to have too much weight, you know, just going to have some fiber optic connectors coming out of it. But yeah, I'd say that's pretty clean looking. And the black cage screws, they don't look bad at all on it. I think it looks all right. Pretty cool. So, yeah, and I think that will wrap up this video. Now, when you close it, you want to make sure you have plenty of clearance for all your fiber optic connections, stuff like that. And with the door, there should be plenty of clearance. And I'm going to have some cable management units in between each of the networking gear that will clean up all the connectors, stuff like that. It's going to make it nice and clean. But guys, I think that concludes the 10 gig fiber switch. We have her fully racked. Thanks for watching.